This is the House of Hockey podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network. Hockey is more than a game, it's a lifestyle. It's you, the diehard supportive fans, your favorite players who are on the team you cheer for, and the organization who supports them.
The companies that make your gear, bags, and beer league sweaters. The hockey moms and hockey dads, and everything else that makes this House of Hockey your home. Come on in. I'm Breezy.
And I'm Rae Rae.
And this is our house.
DraftKings Sportsbook is not only my favorite sportsbook, but also America's top-rated sportsbook. Speaking of America, our top athletes are over in Tokyo competing for the gold, and DraftKings has a medal-worthy offer just for our listeners. Listen to this great offer. Place any pre-event wager of $1 to be eligible to cash $100 in free credits if America wins any medal this year. That's 100-1 odds on an American athlete to stand on the podium and receive gold, silver, or bronze this week. 100-1 odds on an offer like this doesn't come around often. So sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook now to get in on all of the action. I love using DraftKings Sportsbook, and I know Breezy does too. It is super easy to navigate. It has plenty of instructions for all of you new bettors and nearly limitless ways to get in on all of the action. Even my friends and family have been loving DraftKings Sportsbook, and I know you will too. So download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code THPN. That's THPN for the Hockey Podcast Network when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 in free credits if America wins a medal. And I know they will. That's code THPN to turn $1 into $100 in free credits for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. And I also don't know for a fact that we will win a medal, but I have a hunch that we probably will. So for legal reasons, I have to say that.
Well, and there you have it. Welcome to the House of Hockey podcast. This is episode 72. I'm one of your hosts, Breezy.
And I'm your other host, Rae Rae.
And we have a lot to talk about this week. There's been a new team that has been drafted. There has been new players that have been drafted. There has been teams that have been broken apart and put back together again. Where do we start?
I don't know. So I can't keep up. I feel like this off season, so many more things, like big moves and trades have happened than last year. But I also think just last year was such a cluster with COVID, and like we don't remember anything before the COVID. Like I don't remember anything before the COVID season. You know what I mean? Like I can't remember now. You know, so it's so much like the divisions again are slightly different to make room for the Kraken, and like I guess we should start with the Kraken because I have a serious bone to pick with ESPN.
Well, I was watching your Instagram stories, and I knew something was coming. I do think we should start on the Kraken, but first and foremost, I feel like I need to set the record straight. I was about to tell you this earlier, but then you told me to hold up. You told me to shut my mouth. So
I did not. I said, "Can you hold it? Can you hold it till we record?" I was like, I feel like you should be telling me this while we're on this show. Okay, go ahead.
I guess so. So when Vegas became a team, I felt like I had to buy something that was Vegas like, just for my like memorabilia, whatever. If I wanted to wear it, cool. If I didn't, whatever. But I just wanted to get something, so I had to get something of the Kraken, and it actually arrived today. I didn't go the traditional route with the S because I'm obsessed with octopus people. Like that is my favorite like sea creature, even though I'm afraid of the ocean. Completely obsessed. I will eventually be getting like a giant octopus tattooed on my leg. So the Kraken is like something that's like really cool to me at least. But I got this hat. So if you're watching this, how sick is this little anchor hat? And not to mention their little logo on the back. So cool. I love the font. I'm super excited. And I probably will wear this for their first game. Because why not?
I fully support that choice. I like the anchor that it's like the alternate image of the Kraken
Because
that
you can't
you
like
won't know what
tell
it is.
like right. So like I could wear this and people will be like, oh, it's an anchor hat. But like if you look at the back, it says Kraken on it, so it's like kind of a 2 for 1. I love the color combo. I think those jerseys are actually super sick. I love them. I don't know. I got good vibes on this team. I got good vibes on the team.
Yeah, I loved the jersey and the logo when I saw it singularly, like with one player
Yeah.
wearing it, and I thought, "Oh, that looks really cool." But then when they took that picture with all the guys,
Uh
I was like, "Whoa, that's like kind of a lot. That's like a
huh.
lot of bright teal happening." It looks a little it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot, but that's what Seattle, I mean, like if you look at the Seahawks, their football team, it's like that neon green. It's like the
Yeah.
the Apple iMessage green. So I guess it's
Right.
like within their world, but I was like, "Ooh, on the ice, that looks might look a little gimmicky, cheesy, but I still
I
do
mean,
like the logo and all that."
I think it's gonna pop. I think if you're gonna go off of bright, obnoxious jerseys, you could easily probably argue the Ducks and their bright orange jerseys that they wear sometimes. Even Vegas, those super flashy gold
Yeah.
ones, like with like their gold reflective helmets, you're like, bro, I can't see.
Yeah. Yeah, those received quite a lot of criticism. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, even the Kings did it. Well, the Kings I feel like had a different
They
kind of
they did it
approach
with the
because
chrome helmet.
the Chrome, which they played at the Stadium Series because it was like Air Force based and whatnot. So I think that was kind of cool. It's not something that I think they wore it one time last season, um, just to like kind of bring it back. But when it's 1 or 2 games or like a special occasion kind of game, I would say like cool. But like if it's like a lot of games, that's when it gets a lot. But we'll see. Again, it could change when they're on the ice. I don't know, but I think I'm pretty pumped on the logo and the colors. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like this team. There's a lot of controversy on the team on the
Oh my
roster.
God. Yes.
The roster. I mean, they had so many names to choose from, and they chose the ones that they did. Uh, I'm curious to see what the strategy is there. I have a feeling
Yeah.
there's going to be a lot of moves that are going to be happening before like opening day and whatnot. But I am very curious onto or as to why they chose those names and why they think those players are going to mesh so well together. When you have a team like that Vegas came in, it's like
Mhm.
holy crap! Like
But
immediately these
Vegas
guys.
was like that too. I mean, the only
That's
like
true.
superstar name that Vegas got was Flurry and then Stone later. But I mean, they put together a like a motley crew of guys who
That's
were
true.
talented but weren't like the stars, I don't think.
No, but it was one thing where I was like, you chose. Now, granted, I love Curtis McDermott. I think he's a great fighter. I think he was good for the Kings. But like, out of every player, you chose Curtis McDermott, who is like the turnover king of the century. Like, what? But I guess you need a goon. I mean, you got to have a fighter that's on there. And but I mean, they have Olesiak, who's a fighter too, and he's like, I mean, that guy's a huge dude. So you would think, I mean,
Yeah,
maybe they just want a huge back end and are just coming
they
up.
did. They went strong.
Yeah,
Like they definitely followed the trend of the Blues and the Lightning with having a really solid blue
yeah,
line, like
right.
physically and talent wise. Well, except for like the turnover situation. But I mean, you can
Everyone has
teach,
them though. Everyone has them.
yeah, you can teach that. Like, a
Yeah,
good coach can just fix that right up.
yeah.
That's how I think
So
about it. But
I'm curious to figure out what that code was behind their mindset on why they chose who they chose and how those lines are going to be. And
yeah.
I just really want to be in the brains of that GM and just what was going on. What was he thinking? Was he like any mini my mo? Like
It seemed like that, right? Like it was
yeah,
so sort of like, who is that player? Like a lot of the guys, I was like, who? Like, who is
yeah,
this? I mean, they're
right.
not names that you hear all the time in the mass, sports writing world specific to
Right.
your team. Like if that player came from your team, of course you're like, what are you talking about, Rachel? Of course I know who that is. Well, yeah, that's your player on your team, like
Yeah.
nobody knew who Quenneville from the Blackhawks was. Like, you know what I mean? Like he was
Right.
pretty underwhelming. Like okay, like wait a second. His name is a famous hockey name, but him as a player he's not making big headlines except for the
Right.
fact that he's related to the Quenneville family of hockey players. So,
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of that, but I think there's some magic in that because those guys now they're not coming off of any of the pressure
Hmm.
of being the stars. Maybe Giordano, but I think he's such a veteran guy and
Yeah.
he doesn't carry himself in that manner that I don't
Right.
think, and not playing in Canada, I think will be beneficial for him. And there's a
Right.
little less pressure, but I think there's a lot of value in choosing the guys that aren't the superstars and they're going to be willing to work more with one another. And
Hmm.
I think that could be a good thing. Or the other side of it is they're going to just be horrible. Like
Yeah.
they'll either be like a good magic mix like Vegas ended up having, or they're going to be just horrible. I
Right.
think.
Well,
I
there's
don't think there's
also,
any in
yeah.
between. Oops.
But I mean, there is going to be some magic happening because working together, and we have a lot to talk about when it comes to this subject. But there's two brothers on the team now, so now you have Hayden and Kale Fleury.
Mm-hmm.
They're on there. They could be going after more of like a Sedin approach where they knew where each other were on the ice. And now you have multiple teams that are having brothers back on the team. I mean, Jamie and Jordy Ben were once on a team together when they played for Dallas. And now you have Chicago, who has dual brothers.
Dual brothers. Yeah. Seth and Caleb Jones and Kirby and Colton Doc. Like, what the brother is happening, Breezy?
That just seems
Is this
wild to me.
like they can't all be the Sedines? Like, I don't know
They
that just
can't.
because they're related, they're gonna play good together. Like,
Right.
I don't know that subscribe to that idea. I really
No.
don't. I show me, like, show me you
Right.
guys, like, show me two brothers who actually like really get along and are going to be willing to like pass their brother the puck to get the goal. Like,
Right.
ah, ah,
And you got
ah,
some weird stuff coming on here too, because now you have all three Hughes
Hughes,
brothers in the league, and then the first American-born brothers that have all been drafted. So not only do you have
and in the
Jack, who was
top
drafted,
10.
yeah. So Jack was drafted as number 1 by the Devils. Now you have Quinn, who was drafted number 7, and he plays for the the Canucks, right? But now you have Luke that just came in and was drafted number 4 by the Devils. So now you have Jack and Luke that are going to be playing against Quinn. Sorry, I was like,
I know
wait,
it's
too many
hard.
brothers going on.
I'm trusting you that you got all the names correct.
Yeah, I'm good on that. But I mean, now you have also New Jersey's in on the mix on the brotherly train too. So
And
I
then
don't know what's going to happen.
keeping it all in the family, Shane Doan's son got drafted by the Yotes. Josh, I think is his name, Josh Doan. So it's like
It's
all in the
just
family. Who decided, like what scout or agent
let's
decided
get
that
the
all
bros together.
yeah, because like that's definitely something that happened because this is just like I don't know. I'll believe the magic in these brothers playing together when I see it on the
I mean, I
ice.
guess there's chemistry that's already there. There's a lot of
Potentially, that's like just such an assumed
yeah,
thing. Like,
but
do
I
you
think
like if you
hockey
played with
players
your brother on a line, you would be like jiving? Like some
I
siblings don't
mean,
get along.
maybe not when he used to tie me up against the freaking goalpost and shoot pucks at me, but like now where we're like actually homies, like yeah, I'd play with him because I know he'd want me to do good and I'd want him to do good. So,
Okay.
but then that's again a very me answer to say. So,
And that's a very me thing to say. Not all siblings get along. But
no,
I
I
mean, they
agree.
wouldn't have drafted them if there was an issue within the family because I think they do
Exactly.
a pretty good job at their scouting. But
Right.
I
Yeah.
just I don't know. I think my favorite announcer, like moment from the brothers being drafted or like the announcement happening was definitely the Doc brothers with Kirby just like crashing Colton's first presser with like he just like jumped in over his shoulder and Gris shook him like Hawks baby, like just totally geeked out. That was
That's
my
funny.
favorite. Slash, I'm also
I
biased, of course.
Yeah, I liked when Seth and Caleb were talking. Seth goes, "The best part about my brother is I always get to beat up on him," or something like that. And then Caleb's like, "Well, my brother's a big influence on me."
Yes. I'm off. Let me go off because
Go
I
for
gotta
it. Just
go.
go.
I gotta go.
I'll mute myself real quick.
No. You're gonna have to rein me back in. So at the expansion draft, ESPN2 hosted it. I was fuming at the broadcasters. Couldn't get names right. He didn't call Macklemore right. He called Macklemore. I was like, who the fuck is Macklemore? Who's coming out here? And then like Macklemore comes out and they played his song. And I was like, oh. And then clearly the producer got in his ear and told him Macklemore. Because then the second time he said it, he got it a little bit better. They shit on every single fucking team and player who was drafted. Every single player they said something bad about. They called one guy fat. They called Giordano old. And like, what are they like? The one guy, I was like, I can't with this. Like, what is wrong with you guys? Who produced this? You clearly don't know anything about hockey fans because you just said every bad thing about every team when they were announced. Those were the talking points they were reading off of cards, were the negative things like, this is the fattest guy in the league. And like, what are you supposed to say to that when you're on stage on national television and the broadcaster's like, oh yeah, you're the fattest guy in here?
Well, the funny thing is that I
What
believe
the fuck?
I believe they made a comment about Jamie Olesiak, but it's only because he's the heaviest guy in the league,
Yeah.
based off of his size. The dude's what, 6'7" and weighs like 295 or something like that.
Yeah, but like, who put that as a fucking talking point on the note card? Why is that even relevant? Like, that has absolutely nothing to do with his ability to play hockey. Sorry, there's something in my eye. I got so heated and there's like a fuzz in my eye. I was like, just how I went off. I'm sorry for all the F-bombs, everybody, but like, it was making me so mad. I really hope this isn't a look at what's to come from ESPN, because that was disrespectful. And why are they throwing fucking fish to JT Brown? And why wasn't JT Brown the new color analyst for the Kraken? Why wasn't he on the fucking stage doing the announcements? Why do you have, what was the ESPN's, the older guy in ESPN who was doing the announcements?
I have no idea.
He's been there forever. His bio is like covers rugby and fucking soccer, and you have that guy doing the draft. Like, what are you doing? You've got this deal. You've had time to find somebody to do this. Like, why didn't you have Carlin Baith? Like, get somebody who knows what they're doing and what they're talking about up there. Like, fail, F for failure. I think you got to pull me in and tell me to stop, because like I was very upset. I don't take this lightly because broadcasting is what I do, and I'm a producer as well and a host, and I would just be like thrilled to have any kind of job in that space. Probably never getting one at ESPN unless they want someone who's going to really tell them what's up.
Probably not with the Blackhawks.
And yeah, probably not with the Blackhawks, but you know, Turner Sports, I'm your girl.
That's fine.
Turner Sports is much better at handling controversial hosts. So
yeah,
give your girl a call. But I mean,
all right,
I'm done.
Well, I'm gonna bring you in real quick because one of your ex Blackhawks who was playing for the Coyotes is now retired. Nicholas Hjalmarsson is retiring at the age of 4. I think he's just going to be a free agent. He doesn't really know. I think he's gone through a lot the last few years on the family side of things, and I think that he may just want to go back home. He's not really a huge name like he was with the Blackhawks with the Coyotes. I think the Coyotes are in a little bit of rough shape right now, I think,
Yeah, they just got rid of Oliver Ekman-Larsson.
and there's a lot of chatter going around. Garland said that he had never even heard from the team. When that trade had gone down, the trade was pretty much finalized, and no one had even told the players involved that the trade was finalized. I think Garland said that he hadn't heard from the Coyotes organization since 3 days after the season had ended, and he had been asking questions and trying to figure that out. Again, I don't know this for a fact. It was just off of what I have read, so don't take any of this. Well, just maybe mute this because I don't know if it's 100%, but it's just what I had read.
Yeah.
But he was super frustrated that he, wasn't really involved in this whole thing, and now you're losing two of your pretty
Big name
top performing
players.
guys.
Yeah.
Big name players, and OEL's had a little bit of I would
Some
say maybe
injuries, right?
a hard season or two, but overall, I still think that he's done super well. I mean, he's a great player. He's a great name to have on your team and in your community. But yeah, I think Nick maybe just was to the point where I think Nick also was struggling with some injuries. So maybe his body was just starting to give out on him. And I think based off of his personal life, from what is out there, it seems like it might be a little heavy on his heart. And maybe he needs to take the time for himself. Excited to see what happens for him. But based off of his privacy and whatnot, I don't think we're really going to hear much out of him regarding his retirement, and maybe after retirement as well. So
Yeah, I wish him well. I enjoyed him on the Blackhawks. I think since we're kind of talking about the Blackhawks, we should go right into that, and then we can go into the Blue Jackets because it's kind of intertwined here. So, okay. Everybody thinks, not everybody, but there's a very strong opinion out there that's very two-sided, like polarizing is the word I'm looking for, was the Seth Jones acquirement by the Blackhawks in exchange for Boquist and first-round picks, and the fact that it's an 8-year deal and he's going to be making like 9.5 a year and million a year. Okay, that's what Bowman does. Bowman puts together horrible contracts, but he believes in Seth and thinks that Seth is going to have a really great career in Chicago and that he's going to be the future of the defense there. And he is taking a gamble on him. I think for sure it's a gamble. I don't totally believe that he's going to be this all-star defenseman on the Blackhawks, even though he's ranked like one of the top 10 defensemen, which I found.
He was an all-star.
He was?
He has been an all-star. He is actually he's probably taking over Duncan Keith's position.
Well, taking over his position, but I don't think you can compare him to Duncan Keith in any way, shape, or form. But
you got to think of who Duncan Keith was playing with.
Right.
So if you put Seth on the same line as maybe, a Kaner, you're probably going to get the same kind of return. So I think that's going to be good.
I think that's what Bowman is hoping will happen. And I hope it happens too. 8 years, don't think Seth Jones is worth an 8-year contract. It's definitely going to put us in a bind in the upcoming 3 years when DeBrincat and Doc and all of our young stars are going to need bigger contracts if they want to keep them. But I also have a feeling that Bowman's plan is not to keep Kane and Taves when their contracts are up. So I don't know that the salary cap issue is going to be such an issue. I just, that's my theory. And also draft picks are so relative that I don't think it's that big of a deal to get rid of get rid of draft picks, but that's how I view it. Like you're taking a gamble on draft picks as well. You don't know how they're
Yeah.
going to be. We don't know if Colton's going to be any good. We don't know if, like you don't know if any of these young guys are actually going to be stars. Like you just don't. And so I think people take that a little too seriously. I don't think Bowman, I don't know what he's doing. Like, I don't know what his plan is because he's, made such a public statement saying that it's a rebuilding. But like, I don't really think giving Seth Jones an 8-year contract is a rebuilding move in my opinion. It's one of Bowman's things. Like he wanted Sod back, and look what happened. But I don't think we gave up anything that drastic. I just hope Seth can live up to his potential.
Yeah.
So that's my like opinion on that. And I also still, I mean, obviously this is going to be coming out once free agency starts. So I'm sure there could be a lot that happens because there's a lot of free agents on the market that are good. Do we have the salary cap for them? I don't know, potentially. It depends on if they're going to make a trade. Are we moving people around? Like, what are we
Hmm.
doing? And then
Yeah.
you've got those like 1-for-1 trades, like the Blue Jackets. Like, I mean, the Blue Jackets have completely, they are no longer the Blue Jackets we've seen in the last 2 years. Tortorella obviously gone. Atkinson just went to Philly for
Voracek.
Voracek.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then you have Josh Anderson, who left last season to go to the Montreal Canadiens. You don't have Seth Jones. I
And then the
mean,
other one who went to Toronto, whose wife we had on the podcast,
Foligno,
Felino,
which there
gone.
were talks about him maybe going to Minnesota to play with his brother.
Oh, Jesus Christ with the brother. I'm over it. It's overkill. It's overkill with the brothers.
I think that's what they were talking, because I mean Nick still has a lot of hockey to play, I think, but I
Yeah.
think he could be potentially I think he's worth more than what people are signing him for and want to get him in for contract wise. But Minnesota would be a good place for him to fit in. I mean, he's a solid team guy. He,
Mhm.
has the skill. He has the whole community kind of thing behind him. And I think that if Minnesota could sign him for a few years at a low hit, he'd be playing with his brother. The family would be together. I think just overall for the family side of it, and for Minnesota being such like a family tight knit community and a team and organization, I think that it would honestly probably be a perfect fit. But there we go, brothers again.
Think there's a lot to be proven. And I think in this upcoming season, we'll know which brothers and if this theory of brothers playing together is
May the
really,
best set of brothers win. But I mean, now you have Tampa is being broken and shredded to
yeah,
pieces. I
their
mean,
defense
we
and
got
their
a lot
third
going.
line.
We got a
Hmm.
lot going on. When this episode comes out, the next day will be free agency, so a lot of this is going to be, obsolete. But uh,
It's
curious to see.
interesting.
Curious. I mean, I want to see where Landeskog is going to end up. From the talks of it, it doesn't even seem like there's any talks between his camp and what am
Mhm.
I trying to say?
Um, with the
Organize.
Avalanche.
Well, yeah,
Well,
and
Because
so
Makar got
yeah.
his extension, but
So I
Landeskog and
mean,
somebody else, Grubauer, right? Their contracts are their UFAs, right?
yeah, but Landeskog is like determined that he's going to be, an Avalanche. But from what I've been reading and from some sources, it doesn't seem like it's going over too well. There was talks that he could even land up in Chicago. Um,
How are we going to
so
pay for him though?
I don't know. I don't
And
know,
then that
but
goes back to Bowman's bullshit of being like,
yeah.
we're rebuilding. And
But
it's
then they're
like,
saying that he could land in Toronto. He could potentially end up in LA. He could end up in Arizona. I mean, there's a lot of different pieces. I mean, he could even go to the Rangers. The Rangers are,
Yeah.
in need of some talent. So, um,
Oh, and we haven't heard from your Kings yet of this big name, which
yeah,
will hopefully we'll hear this week.
yeah, it could be. There's also an Eichel that's been, chitter chattering with the Kings. I mean, they'd have to give up a little bit for Eichel. I don't know if they necessarily want to do that. There's been a lot of chatter going around that people need to start paying attention to the Kings prospects because the Kings are building something that no one has ever seen before, which is good for Kings fans because obviously that means a solid future. But if that's also the case, then they would have to give up some of those prospects to go up to Buffalo, which Buffalo probably would happily take. Um, but I don't think the Kings have much to give up as far as what Buffalo's asking for Eichel.
Hmm.
But it is an option.
Yeah.
Big name, huge talent. I don't know. We'll see I don't know. We'll
I
see.
don't know.
Could Landeskog end up here? I don't know.
I mean, there's quite a few big names that are UFAs. So,
I'm just afraid if Landeskog comes to LA, it's going to be another Burns Carlson situation where it's like, oh my God, you have two of the best defensemen in the league on the same team and they were trash.
right. Because of all the other elements of the team,
Yeah,
it's
because
like,
now if you have Doughty and Landeskog together, that's
oh,
nasty, right? That's nasty. But
right.
I mean that actually could be really sick.
But who's
Uh,
gonna score the goals?
yeah, because Doughty is a bit of a showboat.
Oh,
Doughty
I
is
mean, like
basically a,
your
a
O
forward,
line.
but
Like, who on the O
yeah,
line is gonna be scoring?
yeah. I mean, you
I
got
mean,
Kopitar out there. Trevor Moore just signed 2 years, hometown boy from Thousand Oaks. That's super exciting on the Kings side, but we
right.
got to get some big, big talent over here. And who's that name? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't
Speaking of
know.
the prospects and the draft, like the young team for the
Mm-hmm.
Kings, I think the Blackhawks are doing pretty well with their
They are,
draft
yeah.
picks. I think they did really well in the draft. They got a lot of good defense.
I foresee a
What
conference final going off between the Kings and the Blackhawks in the pretty near future.
I could too. I think they're similar on the page of what they're trying to do with their rebuilding structure, even though like the Kings haven't, I don't think they've officially like said that's what they're doing, but
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
it's been rebuilding for a couple of years, and that
yes.
they kind of announced it about 3 seasons ago that they
Okay.
were getting into a rebuild. Um, but we should be starting to come out of the rebuild, and from what it looks like, I mean, now we have Arvidsson on the team. He's a
Hmm.
good goal scorer. I think it's going to be a good change of pace for him, but we got to get something else going. And I think the Hawks are, a year or two behind the Kings on
Yeah.
their rebuild. But I
Yes.
think Seth Jones was a huge building block on that. And I think that teams probably could rebuild quicker now than they have before, just
Mhm.
based off of the amount of talent that is in the league. So I think that rebuilds aren't going to take as long as people maybe think they are. And you got to remember that you're going to have throughout the season, there's going to be good weeks and bad weeks. Every team has those.
Yeah.
And uh, I don't think that, the Kings lose every single opening game. I think they've won one since I've started going in the last like 12 years. So, but you can't base an entire season off of an opening night. And
And
that's
I
something everyone needs to remember.
it pains me to say this, but I do agree with you that the Kings are much further ahead in their rebuilding because on top of the good farm situation, they've got better contracts with their star players that are not as long as what Bowman does with the Blackhawks, which was problematic. Like these 7, 8 year long contracts, that's when you really hurt yourself, especially in what we've seen with Seabrook and all like the injuries and
Yeah.
the not being able to be healthy and play long term. And that's why I think an 8 year contract is just ridiculous because
I think the Kings learned their lesson when they did that with Quick.
Right.
because Quick is still in a pretty hefty contract and no one wants to take it. And
Yep.
I mean, Quick still has some gas in his tank, but he's just not the same player as when they signed him for
Right.
like I don't remember what the contract. It was like 10 years or something. It was something crazy.
Right.
So if
Uh,
anybody were to pick him up, first of all, he would be a backup goalie because technically he is a backup goalie now, and the Kings would have to retrain some of his salary. So it's like,
right. What, yeah, it's like you lose. You might as well just keep him and ride it
yeah,
out. And then that slows down the possibility of,
yeah.
big things happening. But
Which he
that's
was another name that was available for the Kraken to pick up,
right.
and everyone was kind of banking on that. And so, I mean, there was Austin Wagner, there was Quickie that was on there. I mean, there was a bunch of names that like were so much better than Curtis McDermott, but they picked up Dermy, and it's like, okay, well, that was interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was losing sleep over this. I mean, it's sad to see him go. Don't get me wrong; like he's a beast when he fights, but it was one of those things where it was
Right.
like, okay, it wasn't half bad. But yeah,
I think it's gonna be a tough go for us with those teams, and also your Predators have been pulled apart as well.
they have, yeah.
They're in the same sort of situation, and then
I'm very
the
confused
Leafs
on
did
what's
the
going on with
Leafs,
him.
yeah, and the Leafs didn't do anything.
They have some stuff coming up. Zach Hyman's he's gonna be out the door, which is
It's fine, but I don't
it's
think we're
not
gonna
too
get any
good for them.
big news because how can they even
No,
afford anybody now?
they can't. They can't.
Right.
They got to stick with kind of what they have, I think. And I mean, they're obviously probably going to lose Foligno. They're going to lose Hyman. I
Mhm.
mean, but if you have your big guys still, I mean, Jake Muzzin, I mean, he's still signed on, but like he's still very injury prone. Will he be even playing a lot of games this upcoming season? I mean, you have Morgan Riley still that's top of his game. Tavares, Austin, and Mitchie, you got them going. They should be fine. I mean, there's a lot that's still there. And the Predators, I mean, they lost Arvidsson, big guy in their locker room. They also just lost Ellis,
Right.
huge guy. Everyone was blindsided by the whole Ellis thing. They are getting some in return, but nothing
The
like
goalie
that. And then
retiring, Pekka.
Pekka's retiring, but
Right.
Soros can do really good. And then Yarncroke just got selected by the Kraken. That one you knew was coming. I mean, Cowboys had a great season. Honestly, a great season. You can't protect everybody. You got to protect the younger guys that are going to be up and coming, especially when they have the talent they have in Ekholm and Yossi that they can learn off of them. You kind of hoped that they would pick up Johansson or Matt
Hmm.
Duchene because they have ridiculous contracts that no one's going to want to pick up, and they're underperforming up the freaking yin yang. But they didn't want to select. They selected the best player they possibly could have selected from the Preds. So kudos to them.
Yeah.
I'm a big Yarncroke fan. I think that he is a very underrated but very well deserving player of anything that he gets. But Preds, unless Joey and Duchesne want to start doing something other than just lounging and hanging out with the dogs and living up the Nashville life like Matt
Hmm.
Duchene likes to do, I think he needs to get out of his head. And if he wants to retire, then he just needs to retire and just live on the farm like he wants to do. You come to Nashville, you come to play. The city
Yep.
expects you to play, and if you're not doing it,
Go
then
sing
retire
country music.
or go down to the local honky tonk and pick up your guitar and do something because
Amen.
you're not doing a whole lot on the team and it sucks, but I mean,
Hmm.
you got to do better.
Yeah. Come on. There's so many young guys that are just killing, like wishing they could, not killing, but like wishing they
Yeah.
could have his spot, but they can't because of the contracts and the things. And it's like,
I mean, the
if your
thing is, you
heart's
have
not in
friggin'
it, get out of it,
yeah, and you have Rocco Grimaldi, who is a little spitfire. He is all over the ice. He works his freaking butt off, but they scratch him to play Matt Duchene, who's sitting over there scratching his butt. Like, what are you doing? This guy, you bench a guy who just scored 4 goals the previous game to put
Mhm.
in someone who is, singing with the country singer that's in the Bud Light zone. Like, Come
Not
on.
okay.
Sorry, I'm ranting. Call me Rachel.
Just call me Rachel.
Oh,
But
that's funny.
seriously, yeah, it just got my goat, man. That like, I almost had to turn it off, but I was like, well, I want to see what other horrible things they're gonna do because
Yeah.
this is a train wreck.
I have never been on Twitter so much in my life, and it's just I'm not even doing anything on Twitter. I'm literally just refreshing like this, and I'm just like, all right, now what's being said? Oh, so Jalmerson's retired. Okay, there we go.
Right.
Now you've Patrick Laine's in the mix, Timo Meyer's in the mix, Dougie Hamilton, Alex Ovechkin. I mean, you have all these big names, and you're like, I mean, will Laine come to LA? Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm excited to see.
Maybe my prediction is starting to come true with when we were talking to Tony from Edmonton, and I said history is going to repeat itself and McDavid's going to come to LA.
What's McDavid's contract? Is that even possible?
No, he just signed like a 12-year contract or something.
Right.
I don't even know.
Well,
I don't know, but
he would
possible.
have to choose, right? Like he has the clause that if he wants to go, he can say he can go, right?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so.
So if he wants to go and LA is going to pay for him, I mean, I think it'll just be, I don't think history would repeat itself. I think it would just be a total wash, but that's
Who knows? We may be living in a simulation.
We just might be. Let's go simulate our lives, and hopefully next week we're working on getting a real expert in the field, if you will, a media expert who's in the know of all the things. I shouldn't use air quotes. He's a real, expert. So sorry, I take that back. But hopefully that will be really interesting because he's going to be able to offer us a lot of insight on the UFAs and what rumors and things that he's heard. So next week should be a really good episode with an actual expert theorizing. This is just the fan experts offering their opinions on what we think, but the fans know a lot. So
yeah. Well, there we have it. So
all right, we'll go simulate.
And simulation on.
Thanks for coming over to our House of Hockey podcast and hanging out with us. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. And in the meantime, you can follow us on social media. Just look for House of Hockey podcast. We'll be back next week.